Hey everybody, welcome back to Plum Figgy. This is Tammy. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how I create a template for my holes in the spine, and then for each of the signatures to sew the signatures in. Woo! This is just a little notepad that I have, and the paper is kind of thick-ish. It's sturdy. So I like to use this whenever I can. Sorry, I totally just bumped the camera. Hopefully it's not all crooked now. Might have already been crooked, but all right. So I guess since we last saw each other, I did go ahead and add some black sari silk to be used as closure for this. Okay, what do I do first? Well, I'm going to use the back side of this that's blank, and it's easier to see. We need to know how many signatures we've got. So we've got 3 signatures to sew in, and these are not all the same height. So I'm going to try and adjust. Yeah, this last one kind of got bounced around a little bit. So I just want to make sure they're all roughly the same height. Now it's a little too tall. And ready to go. I don't really use clamps and stuff. I know a lot of people like to do that. If that is something that you prefer to do, then by all means, go ahead. It's just not something I tend to do. So first things first, I create a template that looks something like this. So we'll go ahead and create that template together. And I'll just walk you through how I do that. And I use the same, I use the same template to punch in. Actually, this isn't quite long enough, so I'm going to grab a different sheet of paper. Here we go. Okay, this is perfect. Okay, this is just scratch paper from a bad print off of some stuff. So anyway, I forgot what I was saying. But I start off with this by itself first. I like to center it in between my lines on my craft desk here and get it as close to center as I can. But really, my centering ruler is what is going to save the day here. So let's see. So I just find center on the piece of paper itself, which right here we go. Hopefully you can see this. Maybe let me bring it down just a little bit closer. And I'll just move this up a little bit so you can see. So on the Tim Holtz centering ruler, a little bit further. On the Tim Holtz centering ruler, it's really a lifesaver. You've got the same numbers on the bottom, but then on the top it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 12. But on the bottom it goes out. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I just figure out where center is using this. You don't have to have this tool, but I'll be honest, it's a lot. It saves a lot of time. It's like a small little purchase that I absolutely, if I was to replace anything, that if I lost everything, this is probably the first thing I would replace, to be honest with you, is this ruler. I absolutely love it. Okay, so we've got our center line. So we've got an odd number of signatures. It's always easier to use an odd number of signatures when sewing in your signatures directly into the spine, because especially if you're using a ruler like this, because you can use your 0 mark as one of your signatures lines. It doesn't, I would still mark this. If I had an even number, I would still mark this, and then I would do a little cross hatch on them to remind myself that I'm not gonna sew on that line. It's just my center line, and then I might use this tick and this tick and that for my other signatures. But for this case, we only have 3 signatures, so I don't want to do, this is perfect. So A lot of times people will say to do 1/4 of an inch in between signatures. I agree with that. However, on these, I feel like I want to give a little bit extra room for the signatures to grow. So I'm actually going to do this tick mark in between 1/4 of an inch out. So there's our 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to choose this one and then follow that on the bottom. So at this point then, all I got to do is draw a line up and down. And again, this is where this ruler just is super helpful. So I can line up the edge of my paper on the line on the ruler and get a really straight line. This is where I am a little bit more particular. Usually I'm not as particular about getting everything super lined up and stuff, except for when I'm doing this. I do try to make sure I'm as close as I can. All right, so we've got our 3 lines for our 3 signatures to go in. I always write down which side is the top, because as you work, sometimes that can get lost in the shuffle and you're not sure which way is up or down. So there's that. Okay, now I turn it onto its side and I will match up one end of my paper. Thankfully, this one happens to be the right size for my grid on my mat here. And then now I'm going to center it again. So I'm actually looking at the bottom number. And so it's a 4 1/4 there and 4 1/4 there. So that tells me here is my center line. And then at this point, you are going to need to do an odd number of holes up and down. So I'll use this center line again. And then what I typically do is 1.5 inches out. I'll start my second hole, and so here's 1.5 inches out the other way, and then from there I usually do another 1.5 inches, which ends up on that line there, and so we would be on the 3 there. Okay, so I've got my tick marks all made. If it's easier for you, sometimes I will shift my paper over. See right here, they all happen to be in the very middle of the line of my my board. So actually I will just shift this over so that they all line up. I'm gonna line it up on the bottom row here, or the bottom line, and then that'll kind of help me know how to line it up a little bit better. So now at this time I'm just using the line on my mat. So you can see I'm not quite hitting that line perfectly, but that's okay. It got us where we needed to be, and what's most important is this line is straight. So all right, these 2. And the last one. Not really straight. There we go. Okay, so at this point now, we've got something that looks like this. I like, as you can see from my other one, I like to draw circles around my pinpoints where I'm going to actually poke the holes through. I don't know why. The tutorial I started with way back in the day when I first started doing these did that, and I did it the first time I've ever done this, and it really kind of helped me kind of eyeball and figure out where my center point is a little easier. I don't know. You don't have to do that if you don't feel like it's going to be helpful for you. I totally get it if you don't. Okay, so now at this point, I'm going to take my awl. This is the one that I like. I wish I could tell you where I got this from. I honestly cannot remember. I usually can tell you exactly where I got every single thing in my craft room, probably even how much I paid for it. This one, I have no idea. I don't know if it was given to me or what. If it was part of something that I bought, I'm not sure. But at this point, this is another step that you may not want to take, but I like to do this because it gets me a nice clean hole. And what I'm doing is pre-poking the very center where each of these lines are going to meet. And then I can quickly, my point just finds that hole, and then I just poke through. And so that way I'm not having to mess around with trying to figure out where the center is and then maybe poke in the wrong place. And yeah, so it's an extra little step that I feel makes me more sane when I'm doing this. And in the long run, takes a little less time because you're not being all fidgety trying to find that little hole. So I'm just poking through each of these holes now with my awl. And so now this is ready to go. And what we're going to do is center it in our, I have to bring you back up. Hopefully you'll stay not crooked on my mat. All right, so at this point now, my job is to find the center of my journal cover. So what I'm going to do, I've done this already today and it worked really well, is on my mat, I'm looking here on the left side and it's 9 inches from the left. So I'm looking at number 9, and then over here it's, 24. So now I got to find that again and kind of center my journal cover on those 2 points. You are crooked a little bit. There we go. So 24 minus 9. I apologize. I'm getting my calculator out because math right now is not going to be my strong suit. So bear with me. Okay, so 24 minus 9. 24 minus 9 equals 15. So half of 15 is going to be 7.5. So again, you could just use a ruler. My centering ruler is not wide enough for that. It's just not gonna stretch the whole way. So that's why I'm doing a little bit of math. So 7.5 inches in would be, so here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at 16 inches, and a half would be 16.5 inches. So now I'm going to stick my ruler, my centering ruler on. Actually, I don't even think I need that. Let me put that away because we already know that this is the center. So I'm just going to put my template right on that line as straight as I can get it. Now, I said earlier I really don't use clips, but for this, I actually do find them helpful. So I'm going to clip these down and get them as secure as I can. And then very carefully, without moving my paper. Now, you could take a pen and just mark these holes with your pen if you want. I try not to do that if I can because I don't want that pen showing. Because I'm selling these. So, but if you are making one for yourself and you found that that would be just way easier and you just don't care, or, you know, I've even used pencil before for mine, which will eventually wipe away or go away or just kind of not be seen anymore. But what I'm doing is now I'm just obviously poking each of these holes, and you can see I'm twisting and rotating my my tool. And I'm doing that because experience tells me these little holes tend to disappear in the fabric. If you just push it in and pull it right back out, they tend to disappear. And it's really hard to find them. And depending on the fabric that you're using, that's just going to be a factor anyway, no matter what. But this fabric is sewing quilting fabric, and it'll keep the hole for me while I'm sewing in these signatures. So just doing that, it kind of makes the hole a little bit bigger and makes it easier for my needle to go through and easier to find them. So I don't know how well you can see that, but there's the 3 holes across, and hopefully we will be able to find them on the back side, but I'll walk you through if it's hard to find them on the back, then I have a trick for that too. So all right, now I suppose there is this formula for how long of a string to use, and I think it's like 1.5 or 2 lengths of the height of your journaling cover. I don't do that. I just kind of guesstimate. I'm usually pretty spot on. I don't usually waste too much, but I do make sure and cut my number of threads now before I start doing anything, because again, experience tells me trying to cut and do all this while you are holding and manipulating all of your other things, it's just more complicated. So, and then the other thing I always do is before I even punch holes in my signature, I am going to thread my needle. This is how I thread my needle. I kind of pinch my fingers over where that thread is, and then I just put my needle over the top of that, and you could do it blindfolded, and you could probably still do it. So that's a little tip if you have a hard time threading needles. It's another thing I kind of picked up along the way. So, all right. So now at this point, I'm going to use my template that we just made, and I'm going to use this for poking the holes in our signatures. So I just folded that in half because we're just going to use the middle one. And so just grab my first signature here. And again, if you like to use clamps and clips and things to hold your signature together while you sew, by all means, do that. It does make it easier. I have found that I just prefer not to do that, and it's just a little faster for me to do it this way. Okay, so this is another tip that you could use is if you have an old phone book. A lot of people will do that, and they'll just cradle this in the middle of the phone book, and then you can just poke your holes that way. It's stable. I don't have a phone book, so this is how I do it. So when I'm putting this into the signature, I'm eyeballing it to make sure I've got it centered, and I'm looking at how much of my template I have on either side. So on the top and the bottom and the top, it looks like maybe, whoops, a little too far. So I'm just trying to center this as good as I can. And I'm usually pretty good. I've done this often enough now that I can get it in there. So at this point now, this one's tricky because these are a little tall, but this is how I have my hands holding the signature together. I like to keep my middle finger on the spine and then these 2 fingers on either side kind of cradling it. And then I just start in the middle and poke my holes towards my hand, obviously moving my finger out of the way because I've done that before too and it does not feel good, but doing my best to keep everything in place. Yeah, this one's gonna be tricky. I did not make this easy on myself. Okay, so I've got those 3 done. Now I just put my awl right back into the middle and rotate the whole thing, and I'm gonna now do the same thing on the bottom. 2 holes. Putting your awl back into the middle hole will hold everything together, and that way you won't move anything around. Now at this point I very carefully take that out. I grab my already threaded needle, which is why I thread my needle before I do any of this stuff, and I did move it. I did move it a little bit. So now I gotta figure out where the middle hole is without making a new middle hole. on some of these. Okay. So I think, yeah, I sure picked a hard one to show you guys how to do this on. Okay, so I threaded my needle all the way through the first signature middle hole, and I'll pull it about that far. Now I got to find on my journal cover the middle hole on the far left, because this is going to be our very first signature. We want the first row of holes. Normally I would not let go, and as you can see, I'm already making it hard on myself because I've just moved things around, but that's all right. I will show you how to handle that. So I'm going to pull this through and make sure I leave enough of a tail so that I can come back later and tie it in a knot. And then here I'm going to find my next hole, which is this one, and poke it through. I think I got the right hole. Nope. There we go. Poke it through, and I'm going to have to do one page at a time, I think, because I just messed up where these are. So as you can see, everything's moving around, but like I said, this is okay. You've got your holes. You just now need to find where they are and get things lined back up again. Once you get your first hole in, your first two holes in, then the rest should be easier. So, okay. Do we have a hole in this one? Nope. So that needs to go up. Do we have a hole in this one? I don't think so. Nope. That needs to go up. And here is our middle hole, our second hole there. Okay, so now I'm just going to pull this through. Oh, this almost went through the whole way, so you need to be careful there. What did I do? I missed the hole. I knew that. Okay. Try that again. Let me pull this back out a little bit. This hole here is what I was looking for. All right. See, I've done hundreds of these and I still have troubles sometimes. All right, so I'm going to pull this kind of tight, but not terribly tight. And then now I'm going to go back through the bottom hole and catch every page that has a hole in the bottom and the bottom hole on the journaling cover. And we'll come through on the backs or on the outside like that. Pull that tight and pull this tight. All right, so I don't do this the perfect, exact, quite right way. I do this the way that works for me. I go back in through the hole that I just came out of, or I just went in again on, and we're gonna just do the same exact thing and try to get it back through all the same holes. All right, and we'll pull it tight. And normally you would skip this over this one and come back, but that's not how I do it. I just do every other hole like this, and it works for me. So finding my hole in every page. Usually you don't have to do it quite this much, but sometimes, depending on how your pages are set up, that's just the way it is. So coming back out now, and we'll go into the next hole on this side. And I'm going to find all my holes here. All right, we've got that one done. And now we're gonna go into our last one up at the top. And as you can see, I'm moving the journal around to make it easier for me to maneuver my needle and the papers. So just do what you gotta do, I guess. And we'll come back in where we just came in before. And there we go. Ouch. Okay, now we have this threaded. Now at this point I'm going to turn it this way. I'm going to make the string as tight as I can. And here you can see, maybe you can't, I accidentally threaded my string. So I'm going to take my needle and fix that. Hopefully. Maybe I can't. Usually I can fix this. I guess not this time. So, okay, we're going to make the most of the best of this that we can. I'm going to pull this tight and pull this as tight as I can get it on this side. Alrighty, then while you've got it tight, make yourself a knot. And I like to do 3 minimum, sometimes 4. Alright, now if you want, you could leave that string long and add like a little charm on the end or whatever. But I am not going to do that. This time I'm going to go ahead and cut this shorter. And there we go. Now at this point I like to kind of do this on both sides, just kind of train it the way that it needs to lay, and even, you know, come in the middle and do that on some of the pages, just to get it to be how we want it to be. Okay, got a little thing there. All right, now it's time for your second signature. Again, I'm going to thread my needle before I do anything else. Oops. Okay, so it's ready to go. Now at this point, all I'm going to do is the exact same thing. I'm going to take my template, I'm going to line it up on my signature and poke my holes, do my sewing, and it'll be sewn in. And I'll just do that for the next 2 signatures, and I'll put that on fast forward for you so you can see it in real time. I've got all 3 signatures sewn in now, and this journal is ready to go. So let me kind of show you how it looks on the outside. You can see we've got the 3, oh, that's just from, sorry, Silk. You can see we've got the 3 lines of string there, and in between each signature, it's a little bit wider than I normally go. I normally go about 1/4 inch, but I'd say this is just a teeny bit wider. But I think that helps for these pages to lay flatter and for you to get more ephemera and things into your journal. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and hopefully it was helpful for you. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.